Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Trail Network podcast. In a very rare occurrence, all four co-hosts of the Trail Network pod are together at the same time, which feels like a great accomplishment. I myself, Hilary Yang, am joined by Rachel Drake, Leah Yingling, and Katie Asmuth. We catch up a little bit about our summers, and we mostly talk about some of the takeaways that we've gleaned through all of our adventures, misadventures, ups and downs of the last few months, and just some of the things that we've sort of learned about that time and maybe are applying in the next little while. We're really excited for this conversation. We hope that you'll take something away from it as well. It's a reflection from all of us on where we are right now, and we hope you enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Trail Network podcast, and it is your lucky day. You've got all four of us this week. So this is Leah Yingling. I'm joined by Hilary Yang, Rachel Drake, and Katie Asmuth, and we are so excited to catch up. It's been a minute since all four of us could hop on together and chat.
Oh my God, what a rare occasion, you guys. All four of us in the same place at once.
I know. I honestly can't believe we actually found a time slot where we could all show up.
Barely, right?
Barely.
Like, okay. We got 45 minutes. Let's go. Keep it short and tight. It's good to see all of your faces. Yes, Katie, we started recording already. Hi. Katie slid in at the last second. Case in point about the busyness thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. How is everybody? How are you guys? I feel like I've seen combinations of everybody all summer, but we have yet to be in the same physical place. Yeah.
I got a selfie of the three of you from Mammoth, and my heart was a little broken, but one of these years I'll make it out there. Maybe we can get all four of us together.
Leah, I was like, what thumbnail are we going to use? And I was like, maybe we can use that one from Mammoth, and then I'll just like awkwardly Photoshop Leah's face like into it. It'll be great. It'll be perfect.
I did that with my family's Christmas card the one year, and it was flawless.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no one noticed, I'm sure. Oh, man.
Where should we begin? Okay, so one of the things we were thinking about doing was to talk about our highlights of the summer and just things that we've learned, grown from, and we could just kind of do a round table and chat about it. What do you guys think? Who wants to start? Ooh, okay, I will. Okay, so something I've been really thinking a lot about is the power of community. This isn't something necessarily I've learned, but the idea that it feels as if trail running, ultra running has kind of like a organism in itself. Like we're all a part of something bigger than ourselves here. And we've gone through a lot in the last 12 months. And I'm thinking about UTMB drama. I'm thinking about the spring scandal. I'm thinking about the Camille Herring controversy, and then on top of that, I'm thinking about celebrating these massive records that have thrown, or Jasmine Paris finishing, or Katie Scheid, or Tara Dower, David Roach. Like we've had these like massive celebrations as a community as well. And I feel like we've gone through these incredible like highs and lows as a community. And that comes with growing pains as a growing sport. But it feels like it's been very just intense, and I kind of taken a step back of like, man, our sport just is intense, frankly, right? Like you have to go deep into your soul and to even compete at all, or just showing up every day is just hard on its own right. And then to have all this like other drama that's been going on. Anyway, so one of the things I've learned is just like kind of going with the highs and lows, and we're all kind of in it together, and we're all in this wave of just kind of going with the flow and holding our hands and continuing to enjoy the sport we love so dearly. So anyways, any comments on that?
Did you guys see the Laura Green skit that she recently did where she was like, she's like pretending to be a trail runner, a road runner, and a track runner. And in it, they're talking about what's going on in your sport. And like, the track runner's like, oh, we got a whole new track league. Like, there's the Grand Slam, it's all this like big stuff. And then the trail runner's like, did you hear some gel lied about the number of calories in there. And like, it actually like made me laugh so hard. I was like, and someone was editing Wikipedia pages. And it's like, I think it's actually like pretty endearing that like our, drama is like those kinds of things. Like they're not
It's true.
completely
Right.
harmless, but
Right.
like they're pretty small potatoes compared to like,
Big
but not that I
picture
don't
stuff.
care about them. I deeply care about like all the happenings in our sport. I just thought it was like a really adorable perspective piece that she did.
Yeah, we have like applesauce controversies and like, yeah, really big high stakes stuff. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. I think it is kind of sweet, and yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I love Laura, so shout out to Laura.
We should have her on the pod.
Oh my God, yeah.
She would totally come on.
I was thinking about that too, Katie, in the context of like my personal, like sphere of people. And before you hopped on, we were just chatting about Mammoth, and Hilary was saying how cool it was to have like, Teddy or dog there. And I just felt like, and Lou, yeah, I had all three of my guys, Tyler, Lou, and Teddy there. And I felt like that was just such a secret advantage of like having, that community around me. And I just posted about this on Instagram, like how meaningful it was to stay with you, Katie, and like how heartwarming it was to see Liam reading to Lewis, and like all those things I think really contributed to me having a good day at Mammoth. So I think that's really cool.
Do you want to dive into that, Rach?
Yeah. What do you want to?
Well, we were just talking a little bit about like what you learned through that, right? And
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought that was good insight.
Yeah. One of my like big takeaways from this season of life where I'm, a mom and starting residency and working long hours is just like being brave enough to try things, even when all the signs are saying no, or maybe this isn't a good idea, or you're not strong enough, you haven't had enough training. Like you look back at my Strava going into Mammoth, and it is really like nothing sexy. It is like some very humble work, some very low mileage weeks. I think I dipped down to like 15 miles twice in like the 6-week build because I had gotten sick or I was working these like 28-hour shifts. But I've been listening to the SWAT podcast as well. And on that, they just talk about this. I'm going to keep it PG here, but like, mess around and find out, or just like kind of that go for it mentality. And I'm really glad that I did that because I ended up having an awesome day at Mammoth. And I really admire that in others too. And like they step on the line even when they know like, okay, maybe it wasn't perfect, but let's just see what I'm capable of.
Like I honestly loved the commentators so much during that race because all they kept saying was like, no, it's hilarious because I was in the village and I could hear this like, Euro commentary being piped in. They're just like, we just don't understand it. She's also doing her residency. She's not even running full time. Like, we just don't understand how she's up there with the, like, they were so confused how you were like right in the mix with their like, kind of established pro runners. And especially like, I'm sure they don't know you as much because you don't do as many of the shorter races as some of these women do. And so it was just really cute because it wasn't like they were saying it in a bad way. They were just like very genuinely like they couldn't fathom how you were doing both things. And I was like, that's our rage.
I think you just really showcase just how imperfect trail running is though, and like why it's valuable to line up when things are feeling less than perfect, because you never know what can happen. And I think trail racing and ultra running and whatever distance you're doing just throws so much at us, and you have to be able to combat those feelings, those emotions, those obstacles. And I feel like if anything, residency has just like given you this extra level of resilience and just this extra level of like fatigue resistance in addition to that, that I feel like you could just like take on so much. And I think that's a power that a lot of people that you line up against don't really have.
Yeah. And just like the perspective of like sport in the context of life is a lot different now. Like, I see people who are dying and it's like, okay, what a privilege to get to choose my suffering and not like, and yeah, Katie's nodding along. I know you work in healthcare as well. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I second that. Like from the beginning of trail running for me, it was always like, wow, this is just a cherry on top because this is like, I mean, I can't believe I have the opportunity and the privilege to be able to fall in love with something so deeply. And so many people are just struggling to put food on the table for their families. And so that perspective, I think if you carry that perspective that this is all just like, I mean, there's so much more. I don't want to say it's fun and games only, because like we put a lot of time and sacrifice into this, and it isn't, and it's a livelihood for a lot of people. And it's also a way for us to express our full humanity and to like really bring that joy part and like take the pressure off, right? Like back to your point, Rachel, for me, I'm like just dabbling back. I had my first 50-mile week. It's really exciting to finally be back. And, you know, when your surgeon tells you that he's not sure you'll ever run again, it's like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. And there's a part of me that's like, nah, you know, but it feels as if it's a little bit scary. Like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to keep trusting my foot and like, you know, F around and find out, you know, like see what happens. And that perspective of like, I really do feel really good. And I'm going to keep being in the present here and not be anxious or feel the pressure for the future, and just be like, I'm feeling good here and I'm going to roll with it and like see what happens, because there's so much that you can't control. And maybe that's something else our sport teaches us, you know, like there's so many uncontrollables in life and you just got to keep showing up and you keep trying. Yeah, definitely an inspiration to watch you throw down. And what you did, Rachel, at Mammoth Trail Fest was definitely an inspiration to all of us that are hardworking moms, or just like hardworking with multiple jobs and, you know, not sleeping well at night and all of that, and still being able to crush is pretty rad.
I think it's cool too. Like and this is something like, I don't know, as you get into running the longer distances, sometimes I think it's hard to like go back to shorter distances. Like you feel like you're almost like, oh, I'm only doing this or I'm only doing that. And it's like, you know, like when you run 100 miles and then you're like, oh, I'm doing this 26K, it feels so like small or different. But I just think the more we celebrate like all of these things and these accomplishments, and seeing you race hard for 26K was just so exciting and fun, and the level of competition. And I think it's really healthy for our sport to celebrate shorter races more than we do.
Yeah.
Because I think they're way more sustainable. Like for me, the idea of being able to train for a hard, like 2-hour effort is like, okay, like I can wrap my head around that in a time when like maybe 100 miler is just way out of reach. But we have this like all or nothing mentality of what we celebrate and what we deem important and relevant in ultra running. And so much of it is like these crazy long FKTs, or like it has to be 200 miles or 300 miles, or it doesn't matter. And to just like appreciate the athleticism that goes into racing hard and short like that. I just thought that was really important. Like, and it's like at Mammoth Trail Fest too, it's not necessarily the longest distance that's on offer. That's like the flagship distance. And it was just like really, really cool to see. And it kind of inspired me to just like F around with the shorter stuff and just like maybe go for some hard short efforts if I don't have time to do like these long 7-hour runs, because really like who has time to do that and train at that level like all year round? Like we don't, right? And I think it's unrealistic to expect that you could just bang out a 100 miler or a 50 miler or whatever, but maybe like a fun 20K or a fun, you know, like that could be like a way more realistic thing to kind of set as a goal. So I just love that.
So I feel like in Europe, like it is really valued, like the shorter distances. There's Sierra Zinal, there's Zegama, like Golden Trail over there. And I feel like it's super fascinating. I've talked to Katie Scheid about this, how like here we call it like sub ultra running, as if it's like something exactly, but it's actually just like trail running, and ultras are ultra trail running. So I feel like I kind of like that idea of like shifting the narrative around like, no, this isn't like less than or sub, like, and I think Tim's doing an awesome job just highlighting that. And I think just like me as a professional athlete, I've noticed that like since I started doing like the 100Ks and 100 milers, I feel like people in the United States are like noticing more, but I've actually been like doing the shorter stuff for a long time. Like I won a Golden Trail Series race in 2020, but like people don't know that in the United States because people don't care about anything that's shorter than an ultra.
Yeah, so true.
during the live stream coverage of Mammoth, they were kept just talking about like how you're known for your ultra distance racing, and I just wanted to like jump through the screen
I'm
and be
not
like,
even.
she's like a short distance queen too.
She does it
You
all.
just did your first 100-miler. Like it's not, yeah. Maybe it's just because you perform so well at States. And so it's like, oh yeah, that's top of mind, which brings us back to like what people remember. It's the last race that you ran or that you did well at, right? And if you haven't like put a short distance, but you just won another Cirque series. I don't know. I don't know. It's what people are talking about, I guess. But yeah.
That's a good segue to how I was feeling a little bit about my summer, back to our question of like a main takeaway that we had this year. And I think for me, it's like you're not defined by one race, you're not defined by one season, and you don't always have to like add something to the docket to feel like you need to make up for disappointment. I think a lot of times in racing and trail running and ultra running, like you're disappointed with the result. It's not entirely the 100% day that you were training to have, and then you leave it and you're like, it's a little bittersweet, when on paper it might look good, but like you know what satisfying is to yourself, and it's really easy to put like one more thing on the schedule to like prove to yourself, prove to the world like, hey, no, look, I got it. And I think it's important that sometimes we don't do that, because I don't know, I think we see that with like over racing sometimes in the sport too, just always adding a little bit more. And I think that was something I saw with myself last season by adding on like one more race after UTMB when I thought I had some extra energy to give that doesn't always turn out too great, and just kind of like respecting where you're at and maybe adding more adventures to the schedule rather than like actual races whenever you start feeling that way.
It's hard, right?
Totally.
It's really hard because it's hard not to get caught up in that, like especially UTMB and those big races, you know, the music kicks in, the everything, and you're just like, yes, you know, and it can be really hard. But like, yeah, just to come back to sort of like checking in with where you are or how like the toll that maybe travel's taken, or like the kind of emotional burnout, or all those other pieces that go into being ready to line up for race, even if your mileage is good and everything else looks good, you know?
Yeah. It's tough too, because there's like external forces at play as well. Like when you're a pro, as you are, like there's bonus incentives, and there's like, you know, I think we're all in a contract year right now. And so like, that's definitely like weighing on my decisions on what I want to do. And like, hey, look guys, like I'm still crushing it. Let's go. Yeah. So it's tough. Like, how do we tease apart, you know, our intrinsic motivations and like weigh that against, you know, external motivators and try
It's
to
really
like
tough. It's
stay
really
true
tough.
to
And
ourselves.
I know, Rachel, you and I have talked a lot about this lately of like trying to like show your best self to like when you're in like brand conversations and things like that. But at the same time, like padding our results is that really the way to do it? Or is just being like having this like consistent like record of results and like record of being a member of the community? Like, is that like quote unquote enough in some
Yeah.
ways? And I think it is.
Yeah. And with you, Leah, like you've consistently performed very well at like the most competitive races, but you don't cherry pick and go like, oh, I'm going to go win 500 milers and just pick like, you know, less competitive ones. Like you put yourself in the mix, which I totally respect. And it's like, yeah.
I was going to say too, Leah, for your Run Rabbit, you got second place on paper. You killed it, right? Like you got second place at Run Rabbit. Great day, right? And it was really, you could have kind of flipped the switch and just kind of done some storytelling about your day, and like it maybe didn't end the way you wanted it to, but you still got second place and it was an awesome day, and let's talk about how great the community is. And instead you were like, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to tell you my real feelings. I'm going to tell you I'm disappointed. I'm going to tell you this wasn't the day I wanted and what I could have done different, etc. And you come on with Tyler onto our podcast and really kind of like spill your soul here, telling the world how it really went down. And that to me, that vulnerability, that storytelling from a like authentic perspective is what makes you, right? Like there's no sugarcoating. It's like, no, I'm still me. This is still real. These are real feelings that I've had, and I'm going to be honest about it. And anyway, I just thought that was really like, you know, I mean, for me right now, I'm like, how much of my story do I want to tell? Do I want to keep talking about my injury? You know, like I kind of want to be done talking about my injury, but it's a massive part of who I am right now. I'm kind of ready to be done. I want to move on, but I also want to be like, this has been a journey for me, but how much do I lean into that? Do I talk about it? Do I just like, let's stop talking about it. Let's just like forward motion. Let's all smiles here. It hasn't been tough. We're all good. But it really has been a really hard journey, And it's like, how vulnerable are you going to get with the community and with yourself and your social media and whatnot? And anyway, it's just kind of like food for thought there.
Yeah, you're so right too, because then it's like, okay, you kind of balance this level of vulnerability of like, who am I reaching with my story that otherwise wouldn't be seeing the story that I'm telling, And I think relatability is important, and like having people who can like see your perspective and like kind of share that empathy is important, and it's helpful too, especially when you're going through a tough time. So yeah. I can empathize. It's tough.
Yeah, but especially in a contractor year, right? Where you're just like, how real do I be with the world, right? And I think it's always just better to be yourself, I think is ultimately, at least that's, I think probably all of us feel that way, but maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but it does feel like I'm going to be me. I'm going to continue to show up as me, because this sport is so much more than race results. And there's so much of ourselves that you have to put forward every single day to be able to show up in your true authentic self, and like your goals and what races mean to you matters.
And just one more point on that, like the brands that want you for you are the brands you want to be with.
Yeah.
Totally.
And they're lucky to have you.
That's how I felt about finding a residency program too. I was like, I need to be myself in these interviews. And if they don't like me, then I don't want to be there. Like I'm going to be at this place for 4 years. So it's like choosing friends or choosing a life partner. Like it's a lot of work to not be yourself. So just like lay it all out there, and you'll birds of a feather flock together.
Like, totally. The best thing about my 30s is just like, I know you guys probably feel this too, the comfort I have with just my own skin. Like it's just like every year that just grows. I'm just like, yep, it's totally okay if we're not meant to be besties. Like I'm good with it, But it's such a good feeling just to like, be vulnerable. And I think it's something I think about a lot on the like photo media side, is like the more vulnerable I am, the more people let me in. And it's just like such an interesting exercise, and I can like actually watch it physically play out in someone's demeanor, and just like the more honest and real and raw and messy I am, the more someone else just goes, yeah, me too. And it's just like you get the coolest moments. There's just like such a trust in it, and I think like I apply that to so many parts of my life now, and just like all my interactions, because why not, right? Like it's otherwise you're just kind of skimming the surface of like what's possible in life and relationships. And, like I love telling people I love them, and I love, assigning real meaning and value and joy to things, rather than just sort of, I'm going to hold it back so I don't be weird, or I don't want to, like it's just like, why not? Yeah, like because it is precious and people will meet you there. And it just like, I don't know, it's something that I really like grabbed hold of. So yeah, little side note.
I'm also a big fan of telling everyone that I love them, and I really mean it too.
Yeah, I know you do. You totally are so good with that. Yeah. I think it's important. I think we should all do it more. There's my little challenge.
I love you. I love you.
I love you all. Oh my God. It's funny, just like kind of going back to everything we were talking about too, and my own like takeaway from the summer. Because I was supposed to do Bigfoot 200, which, did a whole episode on here talking about all the training and the prep and everything. And even putting that out there, it's sort of like, oh my God, I'm putting this thing out there. Now I have to go do it. Like, such a big kind of scary objective. And then, like 3 days before the race started, the fire broke out and the middle of the course on Mount Adams. So it just like kind of cut the course in half. And like, I was all packed. I'd had like multiple meetings with my crew. I had all of my drop bags in nicely organized like piles. I had like everything was done. I had like a PDF for my crew and my pacers. I had friends coming down from BC to pace me that were all like close trail running friends from over the last decade, who were all going to drive down like 8 hours to come and meet me and run like 50K sections with me. Just all that to say, like, it wasn't like I was sitting here waiting for like an out. I was really excited and like put the work in. And we had like Billy and I sat on the couch and looked at each other like the morning we were supposed to be leaving to drive up to Washington, and we're like, what's the move? Because basically they came up with this like alternate course where they would start at the finish line and you would run out 50 miles to one of the like last aid stations and run back, and you do that twice. And it really sucked because it wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't like it's canceled, I can just say it's canceled. It was like, no, there is an alternative, and it is technically 200 miles. It's just really not what I pictured doing. And I know the course really well from all my years doing media there, and it's not my fave part of the course. It's like 50 miles of road in there as well. And so, between all the out and back. So I really sat down and thought about it because I really felt the struggle between like my ego being like, I've put this out there, I have everybody coming, I've got all these things, I've done all this training. Like, could I really just be like, no, this doesn't feel like it's right for me. Like, it's still 200 miles. What about that is not working for me anymore? And it was just like this 24-hour period where like I went for a run just by myself and I was just thinking about it all. And like, I think what I ultimately came to the conclusion of is that for me, it wasn't so much about like, I have to do this distance to prove I'm a trail runner or that I'm capable of doing this, or, like, even though it was going to be my first 200 miler and that felt like, oh, that's really cool and special. That's not enough of a reason. It wasn't a good enough reason for me to go out there and do it just for the sake of doing it. And
that takes guts.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard to admit that. And like, I was on the Facebook group and like so many people were, bless their hearts, just like really on board and just like, yes, like we're still in, whatever it takes, we're going to do it. And I was like, am I the only one that just is like, my heart is just not in it? It was like my heart just kind of broke because I had this vision of what I wanted to do, and I love those trails, and I just like wanted to run around Mount St. Helens so badly and see all of that. And I just like, I couldn't reconcile like this alternate, like just run 200 miles to say you run 200 miles. And it was really hard. Like, I wrote them an email and I explained it. And then I asked if I could drop down to the 40-mile race, which is just like so wildly not what I was planning on doing, And it was very hard. It was like right up until I left. And I actually left like all my 200-mile drop bags at home so that once I hit the road, like I'd made my decision, and it was really one of these moments where I was just like, I just have to go with like my gut. And I just have to believe that like, like it was such a weird thing to sort of reconcile. Like, what is it about this experience that I actually want to get out of it,
This episode is brought to you by Osprey. I see Osprey everywhere, as I'm sure you do too. Whether it's luggage, kids carriers, or running packs, Osprey is the one-stop shop for adventure. My current favorite for backpacking is the Aura LT50 for lighter weight, multi-day overnight trips where comfort and ventilation are critical. It has an anti-gravity suspension that delivers a weight-defying fit that seamlessly envelopes your back and hips. Talk about comfort. The pack also has easy-to-use side pockets, trekking pole attachment, and integrated rain cover. And it's made with recycled materials. Head over to osprey.com and click on their tool, Pack Finder, to find the perfect pack for you.
How are you feeling about it now, being a little ways removed?
So great. Like I made the right decision. And, I really appreciate that they did put on an event because a lot of people travel and stuff. And when I got to the start and like they gave me my 200-mile like swag bag, even though I wasn't doing it, and you're sort of like, oh, and there was maybe like, I want to say like 8 of us that kind of dropped down to the shorter distance, including one woman that was coming from Australia who also had the same feeling that I did. And I felt really like, oh my God, I have so much privilege to kind of like make this decision without the consequence of like her, but like also sort of like, yeah, that's pretty interesting that she also felt that way. And we were able to have like a good hug and a good little moment and just sort of encouraged her. And but I ended up running it with one of my friends who was going to pace me during the race, Meg, and we decided to run the whole thing together. And we had a freaking great day. We got to run around Mount St. Helens. We ran 75 kilometers together. It was hard. There was a 30-mile section in the middle with no aid stations. So it was like a full freaking value day out there. And we crushed and we were passing guys all the way up to the finish, and we finished like hand in hand. And like, I think we were fourth, and we like hung out with the other women that were running a lot. And like, it was just like really, it was wonderful. It was so good. And I think the best part was just like I was able to continue up to BC and have like an extra 5 days with my family, which was like in the middle of this really busy summer for me. And I hadn't spent a lot of time with them. And I wasn't a zombie, and I was like present. And I ambitiously painted my parents' whole living room and bathroom during that 5 days. But like, I don't know. I think I just like really was able to pivot to like the things that opened up because I said no to this opportunity. And it also made me think of like sort of the selfishness of some of these things, and how it's cool when it all comes together, but it's not the only thing that has value. And sometimes there's other things that take priority. And it's like, yeah, if I'd been able to run it and I'd had a great day, that would have been amazing. And that was sort of one of those like crossroads moments where that would have been the like turn I took. But because I took this other turn, I had all these other like wonderful experiences instead. And like, I just really soaked them in, and that felt really good. So honestly, from the second that I like walked out the door with all my bags of shoes and nutrition behind me, and just was like, nope, like this is what my heart's saying. Like I felt like I kind of let it go. And it was cool. It was like the culmination of many years of doing races where I didn't have a good why, and sort of like learning from that and being like, I know going into this, like my why would not be good enough to get me through that experience, And so let's just like not do that. Let's save a lot of people a lot of time, and, let's just like kind of focus on all the other things.
Leah or Katie, have you guys ever had anything like that where you're like, you make a hard decision to like, on the outside, it might look like an obvious, like, well, yeah, you're going to go ahead and do it. But like, it's just you saying all this, Hilary, it's just like really speaking to me about, times where I've been like, gosh, like it's hard to follow your heart sometimes. Like that takes a lot of bravery. So
definitely. Yeah, no, I had a similar experience in like maybe 2019, 2021 timeframe. Mike and I were both going to the East Coast to run the Hellgate 100K. And I had like the smallest like niggle injury like that cropped up the week prior. And I remember I was on the plane from Utah to Virginia, like typing out my Instagram caption of like why I wasn't going to do the race the next like and 2 days later because of like what had come up that week, and like how excited I was, like how I was really pumped because Mike spoke so highly of the race. And I think like as we landed, I took my plane off airplane mode and like pressed post, and I was like, no looking back. And I'm so happy that I did not race that year, because that Mike ended up winning the race. I got to crew for him and just like enjoy his entire day out there. And like to this day, there's some of my favorite videos to look back on when I look at like what we captured out on course as I was like crewing him and like watching him finish. So that ended up being just like an easy decision looking back on it, but still one of like my most special memories, even though it was like a tough decision in the moment.
It's hard when it's not like an obvious, like you weren't limping and dragging your leg behind you. It's just like that little voice is telling you like, this might not end well.
Yeah, exactly.
I had some situation in 2020, maybe 2021, maybe, where there was massive fires at the Kodiak 100. And it was like a Spartan World Championship race. I was really excited to race against some other fierce competitors, and was super fit and had like been altitude training in Mammoth. And then there were fires, and they were like, you can do it, but it's going to be dangerous and blah, 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 blah. And then they ended up canceling. It was like very much limbo. And it was like, do we go all in? What do we do? And they ended up canceling it last minute, but I ended up flying to Idaho and running I Am Tough. And it was such an insane, fun trip. And yeah, that was the first day. That was the first time I met Emily Hawgood, which was really special. And that was our first race together, and we ended up racing Bandera and then States, and, then obviously a long history with her. But so it's really fun that was that impetus to like the next step. And you don't know that until you're fully present with that decision. And I think what all of us are kind of discussing, I was like, when you pivot, you got to be all in, because that limbo sucks. And that limbo can really drag you down and not be present in whatever decision you make. And so if you just can commit to that decision and be like, all right, I'm going to make lemons out of lemonade and see what happens. And sometimes those can be your best memories. So yeah, But I feel your disappointment too, Hilary. It feels like that was something that you probably like felt a lot this summer, and sounds like it was the right decision, which is awesome. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, I got over it pretty fast. I was like, once I
good,
made the decision, I was like, we're good. We've
because
decided.
you went in wholeheartedly. You were like, I'm going to commit. This is it.
Yeah.
I'm leaving without my bags, and we're in. Yeah.
Had a freaking great day going around Mount St. Helens. It's a beautiful loop. So that was what I wanted. I got what I wanted, really. But I will say it's interesting. And I know, like, I think David Roche has posted about this, and Lucy as well, like the what comes next question, because I've gotten that a ton because I didn't run 200 miles, and everyone's like, yeah, well, you trained for it. Like, what are you going to do now? Are you going to jump into 100? Like, what are you going to do? And I mean, I might have been tempted if there was 100 that had space or like was in a time that worked in the next little while, but there wasn't really anything. And so it's just been interesting to be like, no, I'm just going to like let it ride. And it's okay if like that fitness just kind of, that was the training block for that. And that's okay that, I didn't get to run that whole thing. I still like had a good day. And, but yeah, that whole question of like what comes next is it's a really hard question, and I know people don't mean anything by it when they ask, but I do think it's something I'm trying to be like very mindful of now, because it totally takes away from being present and like being okay with these decisions when we're always just like, yeah, but like, what are you going to do to fill it? How are you going to like fix this hole in you? How are you going to like, it's like, no, it's okay. Like sometimes I can just run because I like running, and I got some great training adventures in just because I didn't get the race at the end of it. Like I freaking ran all over the Dolomites and the Alps. Like it was great. It was awesome.
And you still have all that training in you, and that doesn't mean you have to apply it right now. Like your body will remember that, years from now, all that work that you put in. So it's not wasted. And also a lot of the training is more like, a lot of the racing is actually more about the process of training and getting like the structure that it gives your life and all of that. So there's like so many more tangible benefits to what you've already done, even if we don't get to race.
Turns out that the race results don't define us. Turns out. But
Mic drop.
Like it when you're studying. Yeah.
Yeah. Did anyone see Anton's coming back? Side note.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to Finn's podcast on single track with it yet, but just like as far as like longevity and like interesting zigs and zags and careers go, I don't know, for those of us who've been in the sport for a while, it's like very exciting to see him coming back. Just like,
and to see that he just like still goes for it too. Like he shoots a shot, which is pretty cool to see.
Didn't UTMB like post something with him?
Yeah, so he got second at Grindstone 100 miler, and I think second or third, top 3. He podiumed, and so he's in for UTMB next year.
Okay,
and they're very proud to post that.
Yeah, it's like breaking news, and then it's like,
yeah.
The first thing I saw when I saw it, I was like, oh, like I wonder how much they paid Anton to like, market his likeness.
That's funny, the AI version. No, I think it's him. I think it's really exciting because I think people like him, speaking of just that like kind of depth of knowledge in your body and your soul, like he has so much of that, and I think it's really cool to see some of these guys come back that maybe went so hard and then they had to kind of back off and like find themselves again or come back from all the different injuries and stuff, but like to see someone like him come back into the sport, I'm like, yeah, all you guys up there should be afraid. You should be a little worried,
Yeah. It's good to see longevity in the sport too, even if there was like a hiatus in the middle, to see that he's still stoked on it and wants to come back and do the thing again.
You don't have to race the whole time, right? You can take breaks from things and come back, and like it's all good. And it's the fall, you guys. It's October. It's crazy.
Yeah, Leah and I have been leaf peeping, and we gotta.
So
oh my god,
it is peak leaf peeping here in Utah, and it's going to be probably short lived, but it's the best season. Every time I walk outside, I'm like, oh, this is it.
So nice.
I love the changing of the seasons. Maybe it's like coming from Canada, but I just am not used to running all year round. Like I'm used to like now we transition and we go into like the winter sports and all this, and it's just like, oh, it feels good. You guys will get that too, and Katie.
Yeah.
Winter sports for everybody, whether we want it or not.
Oh yeah. The winter is upon us. It is coming fast. I know I'm trying to get on trails before, but I'm really trying to get fit. So I'm trying to like do more speed stuff right now, which is not as much fun as trail running. But just trying to get back to the speed. But man, the leaves are popping. And it is just a reminder that, you know, time is finite. But also like, we just can keep on keeping on, right? Keep showing up. And that we don't have to put all this pressure on ourselves to perform or what's the next race or to, you know, and just like keep showing up and enjoy the process, I think is ultimately what fall can remind us of be present in this because it's not going to last and those leaves are going to fall and let's just enjoy the beauty that's in front of us.
I think that's a good note to end on, Katie. I like that
words.
Great to catch up, everybody.
I know.
I
So
love
nice
you
to
guys.
meet everyone. Love you guys.
Love you so much.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed the episode today. Let us know what you think about our casual catch-ups as we talk about that roller coaster of continuing to show up for the sport we love so much on good days and bad. Does this resonate with you? Probably does. We love to hear from you. Give us a follow on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, give us 5 stars wherever you listen to this podcast, and see you next time.